Throughout time, roller coasters have come and gone. Only some become legends for their intensity and thrills. Each and every year, coaster fans like you venture to the parks, searching for that one special ride that stands out above the rest. You submitted your rankings, and now it's time to reveal the group of elite roller coasters that you have voted as the best of the best. COASTER-net Uncut is proud to present the 2019 Thrilling 32.
Hello, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to round 2 of the 2019 Thrilling 32 Bracket Challenge. I am Danny Miller from Binghamton, New York, alongside Andy Rabarchek from Chicago, Illinois. Once again, Andy, you kind of said it last week that we've talked about how difficult this year's brackets were, but I think the exception was the first round. The first round was pretty straightforward with the exception of a handful of matchups in each of the two brackets. So the first round, pretty easy, but from here on out, it gets very, very, very difficult. And the standings support that the first round was pretty easy, but from here on out, not going to be very easy, and quite frankly, not going to be very nice on a lot of people.
Well, but that's what happens. That's what happens when you have a lot of easy to pick first round matchups. Then when you get to the second rounds, all those coasters that would be the heir apparent to moving on are now facing each other in the second round, where the point values are higher, the stakes are higher, and ultimately, we get much tougher decisions here. I was looking, after last week's show, just, reviewing some of these matchups here in the second round. And I'll tell you, Danny, a lot of these matchups give me pause. Maybe I feel like I know who the winner is.
You have to think about almost every single one.
Yeah, I almost paused on almost every one, with maybe a few exceptions, maybe like 3 or 4 things. But for every single one, I'm thinking, well, did the voters go this way? Did the voters go that way? It's not easy here in the second round. But I think, like you said, we saw a little bit higher than normal first round scores. And so that bears that out.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, just looking at it real quick here, because on the first round, we recorded that before the submission deadline had come, so we didn't talk about the standings in the first round because we didn't know what they were. So after the first round, and these are now posted on thrilling32.com on the front page there. At the end of this show, we will be posting round 2 on Saturday when you guys watch this, Saturday the 9th. We had 135 bracket submissions this year, which is a new high for us. So more competition than ever before. And of 135, we had 60 of those 135 have 5 or less wrong total in the first round, so 27 points or more, which is very, very good. And we actually had 8 people who had 2 or less wrong. We had Dave Hayner had a perfect steal first round and 12 out of 16 in the wood. Michael White was 15 for 16 in each. Joe Harker was 15 for 15 in each. Don Kloss was also 15 for 15 in each. Jim Winslet had a perfect wood first round, but only 13 in the steel. Jack Nueve had a perfect wood and 14 in the steel. Ryan Zurad had a perfect wood and 15 out of 16 in the steel. But Andrew Fisher, the first ever perfect first round in both brackets.
What?
In the history of the Thrilling 32, no one has had a perfect first round in both brackets. So a little bit of a round of applause for Drew there, who made Thrilling 32 history. Now, again, doesn't mean he's going to win the contest, but he's made some history. And speaking of winners, last year's winner, the defending winner, Mackenzie. Hold on, I got to scroll a little bit here. Let's see, where is she at? In a tie for 34th with 27 points. So only 5 wrong in the first round. So again, a lot of good scores. Now, just because you have 5 or 6 wrong in the first round, that doesn't mean you've lost it either. There's a lot of different champions picked, especially on the wood side of things. So many people with different champions. So just because you've only got 24, 25, 26 points doesn't mean you're out of it. There's a lot of ground to be made up here, especially with how difficult this is. The last thing I want to talk about is it seems to be a yearly trash talk fest amongst my family as to who's going to do the best here, because everyone knows that my aunt and I travel together to most of the parks. Coaster Crazy Aunt Sue, as many know her as, and my brother Jackson, and then my mom and dad, who my mom and dad really don't ride coasters almost at all, and they still like doing these brackets, and they basically fill them out off of the previous year's results, and they look at pictures on Google Images, and that's how they choose their brackets. So let's look at this real quick. Coaster Crazy Aunt Sue, 24 points, tied for 101st out of 135. Okay, so now my brother Jackson tied for 61st with 26 points. Okay, and then my mom and dad both tied for 9th with 29 points, and only 3 wrong for the both of them. So basically, it's the complete opposite. But the reason I wanted to bring that up here quick is it goes back to they don't have any predetermined opinions of all these coasters because they're not really coaster. My dad's ridden some of them. My mom rides almost no coasters at all. So she's really looking at it from an outside perspective and saying, which one did better last year, right? Yep. And when she hasn't heard of either of them or they're really close, she looks at pictures and says, well, that one looks, a little crazy, or that one looks like you might enjoy it more. And turns out that's a pretty good strategy thus far. Now, at the end of this show... No,
wait a minute. Where's the famous Rob Dole at right now?
Oh, one Rob Dole is at 28 points, tied for 22nd. In a large group, tied for 22nd. So Rob Dole hanging in there. Now, Rob Dole, though, as if you're looking at the standing sheet from the first round, went off the board. So many people selecting Steel Vengeance as the Steel winner. Rob Dole went with Fury 325. So currently he is him and one other person are in that group of 22 who both have Fury selected as their champion. No one above them has Fury selected as their Steel champion. So if Fury ends up winning this year, Rob Dole may just be in the catbird seat to win this whole thing. After so much heckling from us.
Move. We'll see how it plays
It's a bold strategy, Cotton. Let's see if it pays off for him. So with that, we'll take a look at the updated standings after we get through this round here in over the course of the next 40 minutes or so. But Andy, shall we go into round 2 and start to narrow down to the Elite 8?
Let's do it.
Let's do it. All right. So we're heading to the wood bracket first. We're starting in the old Indiana region, and we've got El Toro from Six Flags Great Adventure and Goliath from Six Flags Great America. What do you think?
This one's an easy one. As much as you dislike El Toro, the most people don't. So El Toro moves on.
It is El Toro moving on to the Elite 8 once again this year. So we talked about the potential for a rematch of last year's championship in the Elite 8 here. We've got the Voyage from Holiday World going up against the Beast from Kings Island. El Toro's already held up its end of the bargain there to get the rematch. Are we seeing it? I think most people are probably saying yes here.
Book the rematch, Danny.
Well, you can book the rematch of last year's championship. The Voyage knocks off the Beast. Andy, we've got a rematch with a Final Four spot on the line. El Toro, last year's number 2. The Voyage, last year's number 1. We get it next week. Once again, we get to talk about Voyage versus El Toro.
Oh man, this is going to be the matchup that I think a lot of people picked El Toro as their champion. A lot of people picked Voyage as their champion. This one's gonna knock a lot of people out either way next week with their wood champion, because, and again, we talked about it with so many people picking Steel Vengeance as the Steel champion this year. The winner, and there's a lot of variation between the wood champion. We talked about it last week, how many different rides have been chosen by people as the wood champion. Almost everyone's got Steel Vengeance. So if Steel Vengeance wins,
you are going to have that wood champion correct. If Steel
Yeah.
Vengeance doesn't win, then maybe one of the few people who has Fury or I-305 or Expedition G-Force or one of those others, then maybe they have a little bit of a chance here to win it if they don't have the wood champion right. But if Steel Vengeance wins the steel side, then the wood champion is going to be critical, and El Toro versus Voyage is going to knock a lot of people out if that's how things materialize here. So we'll find out who wins that one next week. But we've got Voyage versus El Toro in the Old Indiana region finals. Let's move on now to the Rocky Glen region. First matchup here, we've got Ravine Flyer 2 from Waldameer. A perennial top 10 really in this poll here. And we've got Gold Striker from California's Great America.
Danny, this is one of those matchups I was talking about that this is one of those that you look at it on the paper and it's tough to pick. Ravine Flyer 2, Gold Striker. You love Gold Striker. Ravine Flyer 2 always done fairly well in this poll. Ultimately, I honestly don't know how to go on this one.
Well, it is Gold Striker moving on here in the Rocky Glen region. Gold Striker knocking off Ravine Flyer 2. Gold Striker, I always talk about one of my favorites. So happy to see Gold Striker moving on here. And, two more rides. Again, very, very strong rides here. Rampage from Alabama Splash Adventure going up against the Phoenix from Knoebels Amusement Resort. Rampage a couple years ago was a top 5 coaster in its first year that it reopened. A lot of people had good things to say. It's dropped a little bit. Phoenix, like we talked about in one of the throwdowns, a couple weeks ago, always top 5, 6, or 7 or so in this poll. Which way are you leaning on this one here?
This is another one that might give you pause, but I think Phoenix's tough matchup was in the first round with Mystic Timbers. That was the tough one. This one should have been the easier choice. I think either way you went on Phoenix or Mystic Timbers, I think you probably had it going past Rampage, which made that first choice ever so more important.
Yes.
So I think it's Phoenix here.
It is the Phoenix moving on here in the Rocky Glen region. So Phoenix and Gold Striker will go at it, spot in the Final Four on the line. And coincidentally, Andy, those two rides, my number 2 and number 3 on my wood coaster rankings. So definitely, they're not getting any easier, as we talked about here at the top of the show here. Let's move on to the Pixieland region now, where we've got the coaster from PNE Playland in Vancouver going up against Prowler from Worlds of Fun. And again, 2 rides. I don't think anyone had either of these rides winning, but a very important decision here because, again, points are on the line, and these two, generally speaking, have been pretty close to one another in past years.
And to be honest, this was the region that we said was the weakest region of the whole tournament. So, so these
and I can tell you so far, this is the region thus far in the tournament that is wreaking havoc with people.
Well, and here's the problem. One of these coasters has to move on. You got 4 coasters here. You got Coaster, Prowler, Boulder Dash, and Tremors. One of them has to move on, and I don't think that choice is altogether super clear. No. I love Prowler. I think Prowler is a top 5 ride. I know Coaster has traditionally, made it in like that 1 year, and then since then has steadily moved up the rankings. With you guys having ridden Coaster and had such high praise for Coaster, I would tend to think Coaster might edge past Prowler. I think it's the wrong choice. I can't really say that because I've not been on Coaster. But I think Prowler is one of the most underrated rides in the world. So, but I have to say Coaster here.
I would say Prowler is maybe one of the most underrated rides out there, and I would say Coaster is maybe one of the most unknown great rides that is out there. Because, if you go up to just your regular Ohio coaster nerd, they may not even know what the coaster at PNE Playland is.
You can go up to a lot of coaster people. I don't even think you need to specify Ohio. you can go to a lot of message boards and start talking about Coaster, and people look at you like, what the hell are you talking about?
Yeah, they like have to go to RCDB. It's like you when it was what the hell is Lyseberg Bonin a couple years ago. You had to go look it up in the middle.
Rightfully so.
Well, so moving on to the Elite Eight is PNE Playland's Coaster.
Ooh.
How about that? You see how I went with the P first to make it trick a few people.
Yeah.
Yes, the Coaster from PNE Playland moving on to the Elite Eight here. Maybe a slight upset there for in terms of people picking the brackets. Maybe not so many people expecting that. I don't know.
Yeah, well, it doesn't get any easier, does it?
No, it doesn't. Now moving on here, see who will take on the Coaster. It is Boulder Dash from Lake Compounce going up against Tremors from Silverwood.
This one's an easy one.
And I think this one is a pretty easy one based on the history. Boulder Dash moves on here, and Boulder Dash will be taking on the Coaster from PNE Playland. And Boulder Dash and Tremors, CCI coasters, sort of from their last few years. Similarities and differences between the two, but Boulder Dash, has the history here. Boulder Dash moves on. So now you've got Boulder Dash, which is kind of like always been in the mix there. Won the very first year, hasn't won since, always been in the mix, always been in the top 4 or 5. And then Coaster is kind of like the Cinderella, if you will, the ride that, maybe people don't expect coming. What are your thoughts on a Final Four preview here? You think you tend to, even though you don't like Boulder Dash, you seemed pretty confident in general that it was moving on.
Yeah, but I know a whole lot of new voters got out to ride Coaster at PNE, and like you said, a lot of people liked it. I hear a lot of people talk bad things about Boulder Dash, so I wonder if that's going to have an effect here. I tend to think it will. I think Coaster's got a shot. Boulder Dash, former champion, like you said.
Yeah. But
I think Coaster's got a shot here. Coaster might be, the dark horse, the underdog of this tournament right now.
Well, and now that it's beaten Prowler, maybe you're giving Coaster a little bit more thought now all of a sudden, because I think a lot of people had Prowler maybe winning that one. So we'll see how that goes in the Pixieland region there. Let's wrap up the wood bracket with the Celebration City region. And our first matchup there, we've got Mind Blower from Fun Spot Kissimmee going up against Outlaw Run from Silver Dollar City. Mind Blower, sort of a surprise winner to many in that first round, knocking off the Raven from Holiday World. Any chance it pulls off another upset?
I don't think so. Outlaw Run's just too strong of a roller coaster. Mind Blower, like I said before, I was surprised that it got out of the first round. But now that it's up against Outlaw Run, I don't think it has a shot here.
Yeah, it is Outlaw Run moving on to the Elite Eight here. Again, not a big surprise here. Mind Blower, good on you for winning in the first round there, but it's time to get rid of some of the rides that a lot of people like, but a lot of people don't like too. It's time to narrow it down to the rides that everybody likes, and Outlaw Run is a ride that everybody likes. Yeah. So Outlaw Run heading to the Elite Eight once again, and it will take on another RMC. We just don't know which one. By a lot of accounts, some people say the two best RMCs. We've got Wildfire from Kolmarden in Sweden and Lightning Rod from Dollywood. Andy, Wildfire had a very, very strong showing last year in its first year. Lightning Rod dropped from number 1 to number 3 last year. Where is it this year? Did it drop maybe a little bit more? Did Wildfire maybe go up some from number 9? And all of a sudden, if those two things occur, all of a sudden you're looking at one of the toughest matchups in the second round here.
I'll tell you what, this is one. This is a flip a coin. I think a lot of people are beginning to sour on Lightning Rod, where Lightning Rod that first year, everyone's like, "Oh my God, this is like the greatest ride ever," and for whatever reason, the downtime, the issues, people riding it more. We see that that initial reaction whenever you ride a new coaster is always, "Oh my God, this is pretty good." Okay. So people have gotten over that initial reaction, and now it's time for reality. And I think people are beginning to see that maybe Lightning Rod has a few holes in it. The first half isn't all that spectacular. that second half with that quadruple down might be one of the best elements on any roller coaster anywhere still. But that first half, you know, how much, and I've said this before, Danny, this isn't new to any of our listeners. How much can you make up for with the second half to make up for that bad first half? Not even a bad first half, but maybe a only solid first half. Maybe not an outstanding first half.
Well, and that's always been my argument about El Toro too. El Toro is one of the best first half roller coasters anywhere, and then it kind of, you know, it gets kind of dull in that.
I'll tell you what, you put El Toro and Lightning Rod together, and you got a pretty hell of a good.
You put El Toro's first half and then slap Lightning Rod's second half on the end of it. Now that's a ride.
No, that's a ride. That might be a number one forever. I'll tell you what, we've been doing this a lot lately, putting coasters.
Yeah, we have. Didn't we talk about something with like Ghost Rider with Voyage's quadruple down or something? Didn't we make that mashup last week or something?
Mashing up stuff left and right.
Yeah, I think that's got to be a show.
Oh man, I'll tell you what, Wildfire Lightning Rod. Oh man, I don't know. Danny, I can't. I don't know.
It is Lightning Rod moving on to the Elite Eight. So
pissed off a few people, Danny.
Yeah, and a few people, Wildfire is their wood champion. So you know, that's certainly going to hurt them for sure. We'll see how that goes, but definitely you know, quite a few people going to get dinged on this one here. So we will see Outlaw Run and Lightning Rod with a Final Four spot on the line. Andy, I predicted this. Predicted this. And I said I thought Outlaw Run would win. So we'll find out a week from today if it does, or if Lightning Rod is going back to the Final Four again for the third straight year. You know, pretty intriguing.
I tell you, it's not getting easier. It is not.
No. I think that's been supported going through the wood bracket there. So any thoughts on the wood bracket in general?
For the most part, I think we're getting down to our perennial favorites. A few new guys, like I said, with Coaster at P&E. You know, we're finally getting to the point where it's not easy to pick them, but it's, you know, who you're picking at this point.
Yeah, for sure. There's not a whole lot to say here. I mean, it's not getting any easier, like you said. Certainly going to be interesting the next few weeks here. All right, why don't we move on to the steel coasters here in the Camelot theme park region? We've got Intimidator 305 from King's Dominion, a perennial top 5 ride going up against Nemesis from Alton Towers, another ride that has been in the top 5 a couple times.
I'll tell you what, I think one of the most impressive things in the Thrilling 32 is the consistent placement of I-305. There's like no other coaster that really consistently, it just never goes away. Even though I think people's opinions change, even though we have all these new steel coasters added into the mix, you know, the wood coaster side, you always have the same, you know, couple of coasters. But I think with the steel coasters,
not many new wood coasters being built from year to year, and especially ones that are deserving of, you know, top 20, top 30, you know, stature all the time.
Absolutely. And you look at all the new steel coasters that have come in since I-305, and I'll tell you, the staying power of I-305 in this tournament is one of the most impressive things I think I've seen. Now coming up against Nemesis, I gotta go with I-305 again. I'll tell you what, I-305 is almost like the Tom Brady. You don't bet against Tom Brady. And
it's very hard. It's very hard. And you know,
I will bet it against I-305, not as champion, because I don't think he's going to win the whole thing. But I think in this matchup, you don't bet against I-305.
Yeah, and I love Nemesis. People know I've loved Nemesis. I was talking about this with Drew this week. You know how long I wanted to ride Nemesis, and then the fact that I was able to make it a milestone and get those night rides. You know, it was such an incredible ride. One of my favorite roller coasters. But it is Intimidator 305 moving on to the Elite 8 here. Nemesis always does very well in this poll. Very, very strong ride. Not quite enough to knock off a ride like I-305, which is perennial top 2, top 3, top 4. Much in the sense of Boulder Dash. Won the very first year, hasn't won since, but has always been right there on the cusp of maybe winning it again.
Yeah.
All right, now talk about not getting any easier. How about Expedition G-Force from Holiday Park, a former champion, going up against Maverick from Cedar Point? Expedition G-Force has already knocked off one Intamin from Cedar Point. Can it knock off a second?
Yeah, you know, I tell you what, Maverick, we've seen the steady climb of Maverick over the last few years with the soft restraints. We said this was going to happen. But I feel like Expedition G-Force is that buzzsaw, former champion. A lot of people love that ride. I as much as I hate to say it, I think Expedition G-Force moves on here.
Well, we know we'll have an Intamin battle in the Elite Eight, and taking on Intimidator 305 will be Expedition G-Force from Germany's Holiday Park. Once again, Maverick, again, very, very strong. We'll see ultimately in a few weeks where it did end up, but Expedition G-Force coming in higher than Maverick again this year. So we'll kind of see old school Intamin and Expedition G-Force go up against new school Intamin and Intimidator 305 there.
I tell you, another tough
certainly
matchup.
not one I would have to want to pick.
No, that's another tough matchup there.
I mean, that right there is a Final Four quality match. I think both matchups here in the Camelot region were Final Four quality matchups.
Absolutely.
You know, boy, oh boy, going to be very, very interesting next week. All right, let's move on to the Andy Rabarchek region, the Boardwalk and Baseball region. We've got the Smiler from Alton Towers, which knocked off Time Traveler last week, going up against Fury 325 from Carowinds, the defending champion, easily dispatched Steel Dragon 2000 in the first round.
Yeah.
Smiler, a real strong showing last year, I think at number 15, but does it really have a shot to take down Fury?
No, Rob Dole's still in it. Rob Dole
is still in it. It's Fury 325 moving on to the Elite Eight once again. Fury 325 on its way to maybe being the first ever Steel repeat champion here. And Fury 325 will take on the winner of Helix at Liseberg in Sweden and Behemoth from Canada's Wonderland just outside of Toronto there. An international matchup, if you will. Helix, maybe a surprise top 10 coaster last year. Behemoth has, we talked about a lot of the B&M hypers dropping out of the bracket this year, and Behemoth alongside Mako and Goliath, really the ones that are kind of standing strong there in terms of the hyper coasters. What are your thoughts on this one?
I think Helix is almost, one of those heroes of Europe. And the people who have visited Europe from America have said pretty nice things about Helix. I got to think Helix is the one moving on.
It is Helix moving on to the Elite Eight. Helix has had a good first two appearances here so far. Number 5 last year, I think it was, and on its way to, it's taking on Fury 325. So I don't know about its chances here to go to the Final Four, but
well, not good.
Yeah, not good based on the history, but certainly a strong showing for Helix once again this year. All right, 2 more regions to go. Let's go to the NARA Dreamland region. We've got Mako from SeaWorld Orlando taking on Steel Vengeance, the 2018 favorite, the darling, the new for 2018 Steel Vengeance, which, almost everyone out of the 135, I think it was about 120 or so selecting it as the Steel champion. Certainly the odds-on favorite in terms of the bracket submitters. Doesn't mean it's going to win. Obviously, that doesn't mean it's going to win, but certainly I think the odds-on favorite and the considerably the majority vote here. Thoughts? Well,
Mako's going to go the same way as Jaws here. Get a Harry Potter overlay. Nobody's going to care. Get the hell out. Steel Vengeance moving on, right?
Yeah, it is Steel Vengeance moving on. I don't think that's much of a surprise to just about anyone here. Boy, oh boy, Cedar Point, Millennium Force knocked out, Maverick knocked out, but Steel Vengeance still in it here. So we'll see how that goes. Now, the next round's going to be interesting, though, because it's going to be the winner between Twisted Timbers from King's Dominion and Iron Rattler from Six Flags Fiesta, Texas. We talked about this before. One of the newest RMCs and one of the older RMC Iron Horses Iron Rattler, bigger in terms of size and speed, maybe in terms of visible wow factor, but Twisted Timbers, in the opinion of some people, maybe the better ride. I put them right next to each other there. They are very, very close in my book. I think it's really, do you want like an inversion airtime, or do you want more of the speed and the visual? I think there's a lot of different things that can play into which of these two rides you like better, but ultimately one of them is going to move on to take on Steel Vengeance. Andy, what do you think?
Well, in a matchup like this, that we don't have a whole lot of history on Twisted. We don't have any history on Twisted Timbers. We have a whole lot of history on Iron Rattler.
Which is very good history.
Which is very good history.
Top 10 almost every year.
I always have to default to what I feel is the better ride. Iron Rattler, to me, is a top 10 roller coaster. Twisted Timbers, right outside my top 10. I think Iron Rattler is going to move on.
Well, a spot on the Final Four will be on the line, and it will be a battle of 2018 rides. Twisted Timbers is moving on. Twisted Timbers and Steel Vengeance. Andy, we are going to have a Final Four spot on the line with no history.
With no history. Well,
with two new rides from 2018, a lot of people debating between the two Cedar Fair RMC Iron Horses. Some people, like both of us, think that it's no contest.
Yeah,
other people thought that there was some sort of debate there, but we're going to get to settle it pretty quickly here because we are going to have a 2018 ride in the Final Four. It's guaranteed at this point. It's just a matter of whether it's Steel Vengeance or Twisted Timbers. People know where you and I stand on this one, but it's very, very fun that we're going to get to decide this officially here as part of this.
Well, it's not much of a decision, to be honest.
No, I don't think it is, but we'll see how things go next week for sure. But Steel Vengeance and Twisted Timbers. Boy, you got to feel bad a little bit for Iron Rattler. Such a great ride, getting knocked out in the second round.
Iron Rattler, I never made it. Has it ever made it to the Final Four? I don't think so. No.
I think the very first year it might have.
Oh, maybe.
But yeah, definitely. I don't know. Would you call that an upset?
No. I think Twisted Timbers is close enough to Iron Rattler.
Okay.
In terms of fun and excitement, that's. And I feel that Twisted Timbers in the long run might be the one to go up. I think as more people get to ride Twisted Timbers, more people are going to rank it higher. So I think Twisted Timbers might have the opposite of what we see with a lot of new rides, where you get that initial excitement.
You might see it go up a little bit.
I think you might see it go up because people are like, this is pretty legit.
Okay. Well, Iron Rattler, usually a top 10 ride. So for Twisted Timbers to beat it, maybe we're talking about Twisted Timbers being in the top 10 this year. We'll find out in a couple weeks when the final rankings come out. But we know it's higher than Iron Rattler. We'll see next week if it was higher than Steel Vengeance. But pretty safe bet that maybe it's in that top 10 or 12 or so at this point. So
yeah.
Got to get you started thinking a little bit. All right, final region of the night. We've got the Neverland region. We've got Terran from Phantasialand in Germany going up against Twisted Colossus from Six Flags Magic Mountain. Now, Andy, I predicted the X2 Twisted Colossus matchup with a Final Four spot on the line. We're going to find out here in just a few minutes if it is the case. What are your thoughts on this first one here?
I think Twisted Colossus is a fine ride, but I think, once again, Terran is that new hero of Europe. A lot of people, just love what that thing does. I feel like Terran's going to take this one.
Well, the winner begins with a T.
Well,
that's for sure. It is Terran from Phantasialand moving on again. A Final Four ride from last year, a year ago. Terran is moving on, so no X2 Twisted Colossus matchup to settle the Magic Mountain debate here. But maybe X2 will still move on here. We'll see. X2 from Six Flags Magic Mountain, Phantom's Revenge from Kennywood. Now, personally, you and I have been very vocal about our opinions of X2 and how we think it deserves to move on, how we think it may even deserve to be in the Final Four, especially out of this region here. But when you look at the past rankings, these two rides have always been very close to one another. So does that make you second guess the X2 pick a little bit, given the history here?
You know, Phantom's Revenge has always been the spoiler, I feel.
Beat Millennium Force a couple of years ago.
Yeah,
Phantom's Revenge is that ride that nobody ever considers to win the whole thing, but it always seems to win, you know, one game. It always seems to knock out someone, be a little bit of a spoiler, and then it drops out in the second round. You know, it's never gone real deep.
I'm hoping that this is the year that X2 finally gets, you know, common sense on its side. I'm going to still stick with X2.
It is X2 moving on to the Elite Eight here. X2 will take on Terran. I think you and I are rooting for X2 out of this region at this point for sure. I would love to see X2 in the Final Four here.
X2's got an excellent shot at it right now. If there is a matchup here, X2 and Terran, because you don't know, you know, how many foreign voters there are. You don't know the love of Terran. You know, it's loved a lot, but
yeah,
love more than X2. I don't know.
Well, I mean, if you look at the four regions here, I mean, the last region, you have Steel Vengeance and Twisted Timbers. I don't know if I would like X2's chances against either of those, quite honestly, now knowing what we know about Twisted Timbers. Helix and Fury 325, I don't know if I would pick X2 over either of those based on last year either. And then Intimidator 305 and Expedition G-Force, I don't know if I would pick X2 over either of those either. I think X2 and Terran, I think, is a tremendous matchup for X2. I think it has a great shot to go to the Final Four. So that kind of wraps it up for the matchups here. We'll go through the standings here in just a minute, but do you have any thoughts on the results here from round two before we jump into the standings real quick?
You know, tough picks. I think overall tough picks, but I don't feel that we have – that any new light has been shed on the ultimate winners here. So I don't see any reason for pause unless you had Wildfire, and then you're out. Sorry.
Well, yeah, and we did have a few people who had a Wildfire. You know, Jim Winslet, who was in the top 10 after round one, had Wildfire as his Wood champion. So dropping down quite a bit, having that. And that does not bode well in the long term either, because now you've got some other ones. We did have two people. Oh, hold on. I'm looking at the standings here. We had two people that had a perfect second round.
Ooh.
So we had the first ever perfect first round. I think we've had one or two perfect second rounds before, but we had the first ever perfect first round with Drew there in the first round, but he's actually dropped down to third place with 62 points. There's a couple people with 62 points. One of the people with 62 points moving up from that tie for 61st into fifth place with a perfect second round is my brother Jackson. How about that? And I know people are going to call fix here, but moving into first place with 65 points and a perfect second round, my dad.
Oh, God. Oh, this is truly the Danny Miller family affair.
And my mom, a perfect steel second round, 8 for 8. And 6 for 8 on the wood side. Now, she had Mystic Timbers beating Phoenix there, but my mom tied for 9th with 59 points. And hold on, we got to scroll down to see where Aunt Sue is here.
Yeah, at this point, she was better picking Raptor. So
she might have been. She's in a multiple person tie for 107th with 44 points. So
not good to be in the triple digits, they say.
No, definitely not. Definitely not. So, yeah, now the interesting thing here, though, my dad in first place with 65 points. Second place is still Ryan Zurad with 63. But my dad, Voyage is the Wood champ, but Expedition G-Force is the Steel champ. So there's potential there. If Expedition G-Force ends up winning the Steel side, then my dad may just run away with this. And it's the champion from 2 years ago. It was number 2 last year. It's certainly a possibility. And only, I think, 2 or 3 other people may be selecting G-Force as the overall champion here. You know, the next 20 or so people in the standings all have Steel Vengeance as the Steel winner. We've got Rob Dole still sitting there at 22nd. He was Fury 325, and then a bunch more people with Steel Vengeance. All those people all over the map in terms of the Wood champion. So certainly nothing decided as of yet in terms of the contest. But you know, a little bit of a shifting going around here, but a lot of people still in contention because of the vast differences in the wood winner selections.
Yeah. So, well, you know, it's going to be interesting to see who comes out on top in this. You never know. It's still way too early to tell. Start crowning champions for the bracket challenge because, you know, anything can happen from now until.
Oh, wait a minute. We forgot about the impartial Brian Bass. Hold on. Oh, tied for 112th.
Oh.
With 44 points as well, but less picks correct. And then our very good friend Darkside Dick, 131st place with 39 points.
That guy is a real piece of work. You know, it's funny that Darkside Dick is a bet this year.
Has Phoenix as the champion in both the wood and the steel bracket. A first time ever the same champion selected for both brackets.
Well, if Darkside Dick, you know,
not in last place, still 4 people lower.
Oh my goodness, classic stuff. So as always, thank you for joining us here on the Thrilling 32. We can't wait to reveal the next round next Saturday. Right. But like I said, all this stuff will be posted on thrilling32.com, so you can go check out the whole list of rankings. So as always, I am Andrew Barchak from Chicago, Illinois.
And Danny Miller from Binghamton, New York.
Right on, Ride Warriors.
Thanks, guys. See you next week.